Why does life sometimes bring someone into your world who feels like a long-lost echo of your own soul? Someone whose presence stirs a resonance so deep it seems to bypass logic and settle directly in the marrow of your being, only to make it clear through circumstance, timing, or inner resistance that you cannot truly be together. This paradox haunts many of us. We replay conversations, dissect glances, and wonder whether we missed a sign, failed to act, or somehow sabotaged a connection that felt fated. But what if such encounters are not meant to culminate in partnership, but in profound psychological awakening? Before we move deeper into this exploration, consider subscribing to Inner Compass, a space dedicated to Jungian insights, the architecture of the unconscious, and the quiet revolutions that unfold within us. By joining our community, you'll receive early access to new reflections and practical tools for navigating the complexities of the inner life. Now let's begin. Carl Jung understood that human relationships are rarely just about the other person. Beneath the surface of attraction, longing, and heartbreak lies a deeper current. The dialogue between our conscious self and the vast, often uncharted territory of the unconscious. When we meet someone who feels uncannily familiar, someone who seems to understand us without words or who awakens dormant parts of our being, it is rarely because they possess some magical quality external to us. Rather, it is because they mirror an inner configuration we carry within. Jung referred to this internal image of the opposite gender as the anima, in men, or animus in women, a psychic archetype that embodies the unconscious feminine or masculine dimensions of the self. This archetype is not a person, but a pattern, a constellation of qualities, longings, and potentials that reside in the depths of our psyche. When we encounter someone who reflects this inner image, the effect can feel transcendent, as though we've finally met the missing half of ourselves. But this feeling, however powerful, is often a projection, an unconscious transfer of our own inner world onto another. The danger lies in mistaking this projection for reality. The intensity of the connection is real, yes, but its meaning may not be what we assume. Jung warned that when we project our anima or animus onto another person, we risk losing ourselves in an illusion. We believe that if we can only be with this person, we will finally feel whole. Yet true wholeness, according to Jung, does not come from merging with another, but from integrating the disowned parts of ourselves. The person who stirs us so deeply may not be our destined partner, but rather a mirror held up by the unconscious to show us what we have yet to claim within. This brings us to another cornerstone of Jungian thought, the shadow. The shadow is not merely the dark side of the personality, as it is often misunderstood. It encompasses all that we have disowned, traits we deem unacceptable, emotions we suppress, instincts we fear, and potentials we never allowed to develop. Because we exile these aspects from conscious awareness, they accumulate in the unconscious, gaining power through neglect. And when we meet someone who embodies these very qualities, someone who is spontaneous when we are rigid, passionate when we are restrained, or fiercely authentic when we are performative, we are drawn to them with magnetic force. Not because they are inherently better, but because they carry what we have lost. Their presence unsettled us not because they are wrong for us, but because they challenge the carefully curated identity we've constructed to survive in the world. This discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It is an invitation, an urgent call from the psyche to reclaim what has been abandoned. The relationship may not be viable in the external world, but its psychological purpose is undeniable. It is a summons to growth. Jung believed that the psyche is always oriented toward wholeness, and it will use any means necessary, including heartbreak, to move us closer to integration. When we cannot be with someone who awakens us, it is often because the timing is not aligned with our inner development. You may meet a person who reflects your future self, but if you have not yet done the inner work to embody that version of yourself, the relationship cannot take root. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are by reconciling the conscious and unconscious dimensions of the self. It unfolds in stages, and no amount of longing can accelerate its rhythm. Here, the concept of synchronicity becomes essential. Jung described synchronicity as an acausal connecting principle, a meaningful coincidence in which inner psychological states align with external events in ways that defy linear causality. Meeting someone who stirs your soul at a precise moment in your life may not be random. It may be a synchronistic event, orchestrated not by fate in the romantic sense, but by the deeper intelligence of the psyche. Such encounters are not necessarily meant to lead to marriage or lifelong companionship. They are often symbolic thresholds, moments designed to rupture your old identity and awaken what has been sleeping within. The universe, in this view, does not send people to fulfill our desires, but to reveal our unfinished business. We often confuse intensity with destiny. Because a connection feels electric, fated, or spiritually significant, we assume it must lead to a shared future. But Jung would caution us, the symbolic is not always literal. A relationship that cannot continue is not a failure, it is a marker. It shows us what we value, what we lack, and most importantly, what we are becoming. The pain of letting go is not a sign that something went wrong, it is the friction of transformation. When we release the fantasy of being with someone who awakened us, we create space for the real work, integrating the qualities they reflected. Only then do we stop seeking wholeness outside ourselves and begin to embody it from within. Letting go, in the Jungian sense, is not passive resignation. It is an active, conscious choice to stop projecting our inner world onto another and to turn inward instead. As Jung famously wrote, "What you resist persists." Clinging to the hope of reuniting with someone who stirred your soul, through fantasy, rumination, or obsessive longing, only keeps you trapped in the projection. True release means allowing the experience to fulfill its deeper purpose, to catalyze your own individuation. In this process, heartbreak becomes a crucible. The sharp edges of loss gradually soften into clarity. Obsession gives way to understanding, and what once felt like abandonment begins to reveal itself as initiation. Many people report that after such a loss, they begin to notice qualities in themselves that they previously admired only in the other person. The creative spark they saw in their unattainable love begins to flicker within them. The emotional honesty they longed for in the other becomes something they cultivate in themselves. This is not coincidence. It is integration. The psyche, in its relentless pursuit of wholeness, uses these encounters as catalysts. The person was never meant to stay. They were meant to awaken. Their role was not to complete you, but to remind you that completion was always your own responsibility. This perspective reframes the entire narrative. Instead of seeing such relationships as tragic near misses, we can recognize them as sacred interventions. The universe does not operate on the logic of romantic fulfillment alone. It operates on the logic of evolution. Sometimes the most transformative love stories are the ones that never materialize in the external world, yet leave an indelible mark on the soul. A single conversation, a fleeting glance, or a brief season of intense connection can alter the trajectory of a life, not because it led to a shared future, but because it revealed a hidden part of the self. Jung believed that every soul we meet, no matter how briefly, plays a role in our individuation. Some people are meant to walk beside us for decades. Others are meant to appear at a crossroads, hand us a mirror, and disappear. Both are necessary. The latter may leave us aching, but their absence is as instructive as their presence. They show us the contours of our longing, and in doing so, point us toward our own unclaimed potential. So take a moment now to reflect. Who in your life appeared like a revelation, only to recede like a tide? What part of yourself did they reflect back to you? Was it your capacity for vulnerability, your untapped creativity, your suppressed anger or joy? And more importantly, what is your psyche asking you to integrate now? The answer to that question is where your real work begins. These encounters are not accidents. They are invitations dressed as heartbreak. They are the psyche's way of saying, "Look here. This is what you've been missing. This is who you could become." The pain is real, but so is the promise. And the promise is not that you will find someone else who embodies these qualities. It is that you will become them yourself. In the end, the universe does not send us people merely to love in the conventional sense. It sends us people to learn from, to be challenged by, and to be transformed through. Sometimes the deepest love is not the kind that builds a home, but the kind that breaks you open so that a truer self can emerge. And that perhaps is the most profound form of connection of all. If this reflection resonates with you, consider sharing it with someone who might be navigating a similar crossroads. Your gesture could offer them the clarity they've been seeking. And if you feel called to support this work, your subscription to Inner Compass helps sustain this space for deep psychological exploration. We are committed to illuminating the hidden pathways of the soul, one insight at a time. Remember, your journey is uniquely yours, but you are never truly alone on it. The psyche speaks in symbols, in dreams, in unexpected encounters, and sometimes in the ache of a love that could not be. Listen closely. Within that ache lies the seed of your next becoming.